If you're watching this, that means I've actually put the time and effort into making a complete review video. Crap in a hat. I'm not even sure how to begin this video, but I'll go out on a limb here and channel C.W. Longbottom and start with...
Backstory.
I was a child of the 80s and came of age in the 90s. As a nerd, I loved all the Star Treks, The Outer Limits, Sliders, even the relatively unknown Australian series The Girl from Tomorrow, and any other sci-fi programs I could pick up on my 4 free-to-air English channels in rural Manitoba, but none meant as much to me as Quantum Leap did. I was 10 and a half when Quantum Leap first aired in 1999, and to be honest, I really wasn't aware of it. But sometime between the first and second season, I started catching reruns during summer break and became obsessed with the show. I'd watch it weekly, record episodes on VHS when I could, and watch them over and over. I idolized the character of Sam Beckett, this choir boy who gave up his life and identity to help total strangers and make the world a better place by putting right what once went wrong. The show tried to be serialized at a time when networks were staunchly against any program that couldn't be aired in random order as standalone episodes, and despite some contradictions and faulty logic, it gradually constructed its universe over 5 seasons, ending its run in 1993 with a rather disappointing final episode. As a fan of the show, I collected a couple of the Quantum Leap comic books and a few of the novels that were written. I had accepted that the series was over, but in the late 90s there were rumors on the fledgling World Wide Web about the possibility that Donald Bellisario, the creator of Quantum Leap, was looking to restart the series, or possibly have a movie to provide a more satisfying conclusion for the fans. These rumors persisted for a long time, being renewed every few years or so when Bellisario or star Scott Bakula would do interviews where they would fan the flames of a possible series restart. With the passing of original series co-star Dean Stockwell in 2021, hopes of a reunion were dashed. I was quite surprised then to learn that Quantum Leap would be returning in 2022 as a continuation of the original series, sporting a new cast. I wanted to say that I was delighted to hear the news, but I had my trepidations. Here's why. I loved Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and even Red-Headed Stepchild Enterprise. I was the kind of guy who went on to Phil Farron's Nitpickers Central website to make posts about nits and mistakes after watching episodes. It wasn't because I hated the show, it was more about loving the source material so much that you can point out when writers make mistakes with respect to the show's canon. It was a labor of love. When Enterprise ended with its terrible finale in 2005, I missed Star Trek. The Abrams reboot starting in 2009 didn't resonate with me. When they announced that Star Trek was coming back to TV in the form of Star Trek Discovery, I dove right in, eager to resume my love affair with the universe envisioned by Roddenberry. But Discovery felt wrong, and not just through their creative decisions or story topics or casting, but the writing itself seemed poor, and the show contradicted its own lore whenever it was convenient to the plot. Star Trek Picard followed suit with 2 terribly written seasons. I won't go into details about them here. You can find a ton of videos online where people explain what went wrong with these shows. I watched reviewers like Red Letter Media, The Critical Drinker, The Little Platoon, UK Dangerman, and others rip these series to shreds quite eloquently, and made me realize that poor writing was really a major issue, probably the biggest in entertainment today. And this is during an era when we have science fiction like The Expanse, and fantasy series like Game of Thrones or The Witcher, and comedies like Mythic Quest, all really well-written shows for the most part. So it's not like we've run out of story ideas or talent. Thus my fear was that Quantum Leap would follow the modern trend of hiring poor writers and banking on the brand name recognition to carry the series. Then Scott Bakula announced he wouldn't be involved in the pilot, which was a major red flag. Despite my fear, though, I hoped for the best. There was a ton of lore to draw from the original Quantum Leap series, and with today's expectation of serialized storylines plus economical yet high-quality special effects, it seemed like we'd get a good product. I've now watched the first 4 episodes of the new series, and I felt I had no choice but to create videos reviewing them because my fears turned out to be well-founded. I feel like Quantum Leap has fallen prey to the same trend of poor writing that has plagued so many other reboots and restarts. I know I'm probably not as well spoken or funny as so many of the other reviewers out there, but I hope I'm able to put forward an entertaining and coherent review of this series. So enough of my backstory, let's talk about the Quantum Leap pilot. In fact, let's talk about both Quantum Leap pilots, the original series pilot from 1989 and the new series from 2022, and see how they compare. The original pilot opens with a brief scene set in 1995, though the year is never specified, and introduces the character of Al as a tuxedo-wearing, electric car-driving lech who hits on a woman stranded in the desert with car trouble. He uses a touchscreen interface in his car to phone Gushi, who tells him that Sam is leaping, despite Al saying that he's not ready. We then see Sam wake up in a bed, and his first thoughts are, "We did it," followed by, "We did what?" and the realization that he can't remember anything other than his first name and a phone number, and doesn't recognize the very pregnant woman lying in bed next to him. He's confused and disoriented as the woman calls him Tom and ushers him into the shower. He goes to shave, but sees that the reflection in the mirror is of someone else. He initially believes he's dreaming, but rules that out, and tries his best to play along as this guy named Tom, who is a test pilot for the US X-2 spy plane. He tries to explain his amnesia to his wife and coworker, but they play it off as him playing a prank on him. Inspired by Sam, the other pilots decide to play a prank on their commander, Crazy Ernie, and all claim they are developing amnesia after flying the X-2. And during the meeting, Sam notices Al standing in the room. Al speaks to Sam a few times, telling him how great everything is, but Sam just assumes Al's some rando on the base and politely nods to his quips. It isn't until Sam is in a plane with the other pilots and sees Al standing in the back, and no one else can see him, that he starts to suspect something is strange about this person. He also keeps trying to explain that he really isn't Tom, but that he doesn't know who he is. When Sam sees Al in the local bar while dancing with Tom's wife Peg, he asks her if she sees the guy in the tux standing by the jukebox, but she again thinks he's joking. Sam thinks that Al might be the boogeyman and goes to confront him. He asks Al if he's dead, and Al laughs, saying, "That's a good one, Sam." Sam wants to know why Al knows who he is, and nobody else does. After asking a few questions, Al realizes that Sam has amnesia. Al goes outside and Sam follows him, only to see Al disappear into thin air. Sam then tries to tell Tom's wife Peg that he isn't Tom and he's someone named Sam. This upsets her greatly, so he recants and tells her he's joking. While Sam's sleeping, it looks like something wonky happens time-wise, and suddenly he wakes up, but with some of his memories intact. He remembers he grew up on a dairy farm in Elk Ridge, Indiana. He remembers the name of his sister's husband and the fact that his dad died in 1974. He realizes that for him it's now 1956 and his dad is still alive, so he attempts to phone his father, but he can't remember the phone number or his own last name when the operator asks. He takes Tom's son fly fishing and comes across Al again. He tries to touch Al, but his hand goes right through him. Sam freaks out. Al introduces himself as Albert to Sam, but tells him that his last name is restricted and most of what he might want to know is restricted. Sam wants to know what Al is, and Al explains that he's a neurological projection that only Sam can see and hear. With some of his memory jogs, Sam remembers some of the physics behind the hologram technique and remembers the little guy with bad breath and that there's a hybrid computer named Ziggy involved in the project. He realizes that none of this stuff existed in 1956 where he is, but Al points out that it isn't 1956 where Al is. Sam wants to know his own last name, but Al says that's restricted. He then says that all he can tell Sam is that he's part of a time travel experiment that went a little caca, and they're having trouble retrieving him. Al believes that because Sam told people in 1956 he wasn't Tom, that they were unable to pull him back to the present. He also reveals that everyone sees Sam as Tom in 1956, and the people in the future see Tom as Sam, as they technically traded places in space and time, and it was through interrogating Tom in the future that allowed them to find out where and when Sam was in the present. Al tells Sam that the project is going to try and retrieve him on Tuesday, but Sam reveals that he's scheduled to test fly the X-2 on Monday. Sam tries his best to play the part of Tom Stratton and goes to the hangar to look at the X-2. Al shows up and gives Sam the Dick and Jane version of Sam's time travel theory, the string theory, which posits that you can travel to random points in time within your own lifetime, which is what Project Quantum Leap is about. When Sam is bothered by Al walking through physical objects, Al explains that he's standing in the imaging chamber in the future, where Sam and everything around him is a hologram to Al. Sam starts to recall a few memories of the project, but Al won't tell him what year he's from, only that the project runs out of New Mexico. He does say that Ziggy has a crazy theory that God, time, or fate was waiting for Sam's quantum leap in order to correct a mistake in the life of Tom Stratton, with the theory that if he fixes whatever went wrong in Tom's life, he'll return to the future. And since Tom originally dies while trying to reach Mach 3, Ziggy reasons that if Sam successfully completes the flight, he'll return to the future and Tom will return to 1956. The problem with this plan is that Sam doesn't know how to fly and wants an alternate solution, but Ziggy's other projected ways home are less and less likely, including sitting at ground zero during a nuclear detonation, with the final and unacceptable option given by Al that Sam could simply live as Tom for 40 years until he's back in his own time, and Tom will live on as him in the future. Sam resigns himself to taking the X-2 for the test flight, with Al as a holographic co-pilot telling and showing him everything he needs to do and say to complete the mission. Discovering a mechanical problem with the X-2 during the flight, Sam pushes it to Mach 3 and ejects before the plane explodes, parachuting safely to the ground. Despite saving Tom's life, Sam is still trapped in the past, and Sam and Al try to figure out how he's supposed to get home. It turns out that Peg, Tom's wife, went into distress after hearing that the plane crashed and was in the hospital. Sam arrives and talks with her, directing her in Lamaze breathing techniques to overcome painful cramping, techniques that didn't exist yet. A doctor takes Sam aside and says that Peg is in premature labor and that the outcome isn't good. Sam's medical knowledge kicks in and he figures out that her labor is early enough that it could be stopped by using drugs that won't be invented for another 20 years. He then remembers that an earlier technique developed in the 1960s used alcohol and would produce the same effects as the future drugs. He convinces the doctors around him to try, and they successfully stop the labor. With Peg and the baby safe, Sam finds himself suddenly in the middle of a baseball game in 1968. Al arrives shortly after and informs Sam that while moments have only passed for him, a week has passed in the future at the project, and everyone is celebrating the success. He tells Sam that in the original history, after Tom died testing the X-2, his wife Peg went into premature labor and the baby was stillborn. But because of Sam, Tom survived and his baby daughter survived. Al reveals that Quantum Leap is Sam's project and that he built Ziggy, having 6 doctorates and being considered the next Einstein. And if there's anyone who can figure out how to bring Sam back, it's Sam. Sam laments his memory loss and that he can't even remember his own name. Feeling sorry for him, Al tells Sam that his last name is Beckett. Sam uses this knowledge to make a long-distance call to his father. He pretends to be a distant relative in order to have a heartfelt conversation with his father about family and fathers and sons. After the call, Sam realizes that maybe leaping through time isn't a bad thing after all, and there could be a lot he could put right before he's done. He thanks Al and goes on to completely flub his turn at bat, causing a series of errors that allow his team to win. As everyone congratulates him, Sam leaps again, finding himself as a pipe-smoking professor at the front of a class. And the episode ends on that cliffhanger. So why was this first episode so awesome? Well, for starters, we see very little of the future, or Sam's present. Aside from the first few minutes set on a desert highway at night, we don't know anything about the time Sam is from other than it's sometime in the mid-1990s. In fact, throughout the series, we almost never see Sam's present or the people in it besides Al. To be honest, the pilot didn't even need those first few minutes with Al and Tina. We could have started off with Sam waking up in bed and the episode would have been just as good, even more mysterious given Sam's predicament. The other thing that makes it so great is that we are with Sam every step as he tries to figure out what's going on. We hear his thoughts. We understand his confusion and his fears. We get emotionally invested in his story because we're living it with him. And the creators didn't rush it either. His first conversation with Al, where he starts getting some answers, happens 38 minutes into the episode. So that's how the original series was kicked off. Now let's talk about the pilot of the Quantum Leap 2022 series. Allow me to break it down, and warning, there are spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet and you want to be surprised, turn back now. We start with a couple of black screens of terse exposition summarizing the original series' premise, and the fact that the project was ultimately abandoned after failing to bring Sam Beckett home. Until now, of course. We then see a mysterious female typing rapidly in what looks like some dank server room. The camera pauses briefly on the ring on her right hand, which looks suspiciously familiar. Our mystery woman starts texting someone named Ben Song, and we cut to an engagement party for Ben and his fiancée Addison. We're introduced to the other characters who will be the main team in 2022. Security expert Jen, I think, very outgoing programmer Ian, and team leader Magic, played by Ernie Hudson. Ben checks his phone to see that Mystery Woman has been blowing him up, and he promptly leaves the party, steps into the 2022 version of the Quantum Leap Accelerator, which looks like it was inspired by the drive room of the Event Horizon, and suddenly Ben finds himself sitting behind the wheel of a van, watching Live Aid on a portable mini TV. He's startled by his passenger, who is questioning what they're doing there, with, of course, Ben having no idea, until the passenger's Casio digital watch alerts him that it's go time. When the passenger puts on a balaclava and pulls out a gun, it's obvious that there's a crime going down, and Ben is the wheelman. That's when Ben looks in the mirror and sees the reflection of some white guy with a beard. He gets out of the van and finds himself standing in a street right out of 1985 as the camera pans through the intersection to show us 1980 things like a bunch of vintage cars driving around, people listening to Walkmans, people lining up and waiting to use a phone booth, a poster for Live Aid, which was just playing on the portable TV, so you know it's July 13th, 1935, and a theater playing a double feature of 1985 films The Goonies and St. Elmo's Fire. Wait, is that something that could actually have happened? Goonies is a kids movie, and I've never seen St. Elmo's Fire, but according to IMDb, it's rated R and more of a geared towards adults kind of film. Seems like a weird combo for a double feature. Ben checks the wallet in his pocket and learns some things about the person he's leaped into. He's a 41-year-old guy named Nick Rounder from Philadelphia who's driving around with an expired driver's license. Then Ben is surprised to hear his real name being called, and across the street walks Addison, who immediately starts nagging the crap out of him, wanting to know why he leaped and why he didn't tell anyone, etc., etc. Confused, Ben asks if he knows her, and she realizes that he's experiencing the same memory loss side effect that Sam Beckett did, which the original series technically called magnafluxing.
Magnafuzzled.
Anyhow, Ben wants to know what's going on, so Addison tells him that she's going to explain it slowly. She's immediately interrupted by the sound of an alarm, and all the bad guys come running out of some building and are getting into the van, passing through Addison, revealing her status as a lowly hologram, which Ben seems to largely take in stride, unlike some other leapers with Swiss cheese memory. With all the bad guys demanding that Ben get into the van, Addison has to give him the Cole's Notes version.
I'm a hologram from the future. You just time traveled to the past. I'll explain everything later. Just get in the van.
That was 5 seconds. After having to learn how to drive stick from Addison, with her giving completely wrong instructions and without him stalling the van out immediately, he gets Addison to Google map him to their destination while he drives like a maniac to lose the police chasing them. When he gets to the hideout, Addison finally has a chance to give him some information. His name is Dr. Ben Song. He's a time traveler from the year 2022. She's Addison Augustine. They work together and she's here to bring him home, but she vanishes before she can tell him anything more, which was way more than Al told Sam initially. We then cut to the Quantum Leap imaging chamber in 2022, where we see Ben and the surrounding holographic projection disappear from around Addison with some really poor chroma key effects, revealing her to be standing in Cerebro. She exits Cerebro, complains to Ian, who tells her that Ziggy is offline because before he leaped, Ben installed a whole bunch of new code without telling anyone, and it's affecting all their systems. There's some exposition about how the project is now about perfecting Sam Beckett's work, which will allow them to send someone to a specific point in the past and retrieve them without losing them like they did with Sam. Addison cuts Ian off because she already knows all this, and it's obvious he's telling her so that he can tell us, the viewers. There's a lot of that in this episode. Magic and Security Woman show up to debrief Addison, and she informs them of Ben's amnesia. They reveal that Ben wiped all the security footage, and it's obvious that Ben kept Addison in the dark about whatever he was doing. Magic has to report to the Pentagon, but Addison implores him not to reveal the truth, saying that if the Pentagon finds out what's going on, they'll shut down the project and they'll lose Ben forever. Ian gets the imaging chamber back online, so Addison goes back to talk to Ben in the bathroom. She informs Ben that he went back in time without telling anyone. He doesn't know why he'd do that, and thanks to the amnesia, he doesn't remember why, but he makes sure he apologizes for it. Addison gives him a quick backstory of the original Quantum Leap project using stock promotional photo of Scott Bakula from the original series that doesn't properly move as she moves her handheld hologram device around. She reasons that if they have any hope of getting Ben home, he'll likely have to do the same put right what once went wrong for this fellow that he has leaped into. Ben fears he's stuck in the past forever, but Addison says that he was working on fixing the bug in the original project so that he could be pulled back to 2022 when he leaps. Having to play the part of getaway driver Nick Rounder, Ben learns some of what the criminals are up to. They're a motley crew led by an obvious sociopath, and they're planning something big. Ben learns that Ryan, the guy who got Nick involved in the heist, is doing it to pay his wife's medical bills. Addison shows up to inform Ben that Ryan gets killed, and Ziggy thinks that Ben is there to save his life. Ben and Ryan go to some jeweler who has made a fake replica of the Hope Diamond, and Ben realizes that the job is to swap out the fake with the real one in the museum. The jeweler tries to hustle them, but Ben reveals that he understands Romanian and several other languages, and knows every detail about his life. Addison, who is a little slow to catch on, finally Googles the jeweler and provides Ben with special knowledge that is enough to rattle the jeweler, who lets them go. Meanwhile, in 2022, Security Woman shows Magic recovered camera footage showing that Ben was working with a woman the night he leaped. They can't see her face, but they're able to identify the ring she's wearing. Turns out it's a military ring, and Magic has one too. Security Woman also suggests that she be fired because of the security breach, but Magic refuses because she's so awesome and gives her a great pep talk. Back in 1985, Ben warns Ryan about his impending death and convinces him to back out of the heist. When they go to see Psycho Boss, he reveals that Nick, the guy who Ben has leaped into, is actually an undercover cop. They go to shoot him, but Ben convinces them that if they kill a cop, nobody will stop looking for them. So they decide to tie him up in the back room and leave him behind. Ben tries to convince Ryan to walk away, but Ryan concludes he'll be dead either way. We then leap back to Project Quantum Leap, see what I did there, where Ian has an anxiety attack and just can't deal with everything going on. So Magic does his leadership thing to make him buck up, and Ian says something that causes an aha moment for Magic, and the team is able to figure out what the criminals are going to heist. Addison helps Ben get out of his binds while revealing to him that she was originally supposed to be the Leaper and he the hologram before his unexpected disappearance. Ben decides that instead of phoning the police and getting Ryan arrested and unable to help his wife, he'll stop the heist. Addison warns him that if he fails his mission, he won't get home, and everyone at home cares about him and wants him back. Ben apologizes for letting everyone down, but says that he can't let Ryan down. Then to the actual backing of Aha's Take on Me, Ben, having found a tuck somewhere, is told by Addison that if the person he leaps into dies, he'll die too. Ben goes into the gala where the heist is going to happen, and Addison walks him through how the original heist went. Ben interferes with one key step in the plan, and then finds Ryan to try and convince him to leave. Ben then reenacts the initial dance scene from True Lies, with the same music, I think, along with the female team member. He tries to negotiate Ryan's safe release from the team, but she fires her gun into the air, causing everyone to run outside towards a bomb-laden vehicle that originally was meant to be a diversion. Ben can't disarm the bomb, so he directs Ryan to take a conveniently placed crowbar from beside the bomb and open a manhole cover. And I can say manhole because it's 1985. Sorry, lame joke. Ben takes the bomb and drops it into the sewers right before it explodes, saving everyone's lives. Ben offers Ryan some advice that applies to himself, and Addison gives him the subsequent happy ending version of history from that point forward. Ben then leaps, and Addison returns to the project control room where they try to retrieve him with the code he added. Now, I just have to stop the recap right there because, as a programmer, this scene is just stupid. So Ben uploaded a ton of new code into Ziggy, but when they try to run it, they get an internal syntax error. In programming speak, that means he typed something wrong and that his code should never have compiled. Presumably a computer system running a project as complex as Quantum Leap wouldn't be doing on-the-fly compiling when trying to run time-sensitive software, such as an algorithm to retrieve someone in the middle of their leaping. But whatever, glossing over this garbage scene.
Something's wrong with the calculation stack. Ziggy can't locate him.
No, glossing!
Because of the internal syntax error, they can't retrieve Ben. That night, Magic is on his way to leave for Washington to inform the higher-ups about what's going on, but Security Woman stops him because she found a match for the mystery ring. It was given to members of a specific platoon that served in Vietnam, and the last name on that list, which clearly wasn't sorted alphabetically unless everyone else in the platoon was an aardvark, is Al Calavici. Even though both Magic and Security Woman know that Al was a member of the original Quantum Leap project, they make a point of stating for us that Al died last year, so the big question is, who is wearing his ring? Rather than leave us in suspense and carry the mystery into future episodes, Magic ponders the question for all of 2 seconds before he says, his daughter Janice, and gives us some very vague backstory that Janice wanted to join the project, but the Department of Defense felt she was too emotional or something. So now they need to find Janice, as she's the only one who really knows what's going on. The next morning, Addison is back at her and Ben's place, which is still trashed from the party, and notices Ben's phone sitting out in the middle of the room. On his phone is a video message of Ben apologizing yet again for his actions, but of course saying that he's unable to reveal the reasons to her. But the truth is bigger than them. He promises he'll return once he does what he's set out to do. So now my thoughts on all of this. Let's start with the good. I really like the character of Ben Song, and the actor Raymond Lee who plays him is a great fit. He's emotive, and you can believe that he feels confused and out of place in his predicament. He is definitely a character I'd like to watch more and learn about more. Ian Wright, played by Mason Alexander Park, is an intriguing character as well. He's witty and sarcastic and is another character who looks deep, as the character of Ian has depth even if he's initially portrayed as being somewhat superficial. Unfortunately, that's all the really good things I can say about it. As for the rest of the cast, I'm not a fan of Addison. Her ability to switch from betrayed fiancé to helpful hologram is unrealistic. Put yourself in her shoes. If your partner walked out on you for no apparent reason and there's evidence that they were up to something really hinky, could you just turn those feelings off and work with that person? I'm pretty soulless, and I don't think I could. I also don't get a sense of chemistry between the characters of Ben and Addison, or maybe it's the actors themselves. They seem to be in a relationship because the script requires it, not because of any obvious love for each other. Nanrisa Lee's character of Security Woman Jen Chu seems a little reminiscent of other quiet, no-nonsense and strong characters like Drummer from The Expanse or Camille Ray from Stargate Universe. I assume she'll be given more depth as the series continues, but for right now she doesn't stand out much. I like Ernie Hudson. I really do. He's a fine actor. But so far I don't like him as Magic. It was revealed before the series started that his character is the same Herbert Magic Williams from Season 3, Episode 2 of the original Quantum Leap series, who Sam leaps into in order to save Magic's platoon and his platoon leader, Sam's older brother Tom Beckett. The actor who portrayed Magic in the Reflections, Christopher Kirby, is still acting, and I think it would have been cooler if he had gotten to play Magic. But I guess Ernie is closer to being the correct age in 2022. He's probably also a bigger name, acting-wise, to have in the cast. The original series has been off the air for almost 30 years. I have to imagine the audience a new show like this is trying to attract will be a younger crowd, and one that hasn't seen the original Quantum Leap. So some care should have been taken to get viewers immersed in the story and the universe gradually, but it all feels very rushed. The series pilot in 1989 was stretched across 2 episodes, but originally aired as a 90-minute movie. There was plenty of time for Sam to explore his predicament, build up self-doubt and tension in his character, before Al started giving him answers 38 minutes in. This pilot runs for 42 minutes. 42 minutes! Like there's 18 minutes set aside for commercials, just like TV shows in the 80s and 90s used to be. In the modern era of streaming, why constrain yourself to such old concepts and limitations? Each episode should be a solid hour, or more. Take the time to tell the story that you want to tell. Instead, this compressed length forces the story to really reduce the cerebral aspect to the show, certainly in contrast to the original series. There's no discussion of the theories behind Quantum Leap, like Sam's string theory, or how Addison is even being projected into the past. There's no investigation into Ben's disorientation of seeing someone else in the mirror, and the terror of not being able to remember who you are, and there's no mention of God, time, fate, whatever the mysterious force that was believed to be guiding Sam's leap is. Maybe in the new code Ben wrote he solved for God? The special effects are surprisingly subpar for this day and age. Cerebro, the imaging chamber, looks like an early 2000s video game room when shutting down. Addison's hand-link projection doesn't track with her movements. Heck, even the quantum leap effect doesn't seem as detailed as the original series, when I presume it was hand-painted frame by frame and not CGI. The special effects are also underutilized for a science fiction series. They only show half a leap effect, that is when Ben is leaping out of Nick, and every other time it's just zooming out from one of Ben's eyes. Addison has very few hologram moments in the series, especially compared to how many times Al walked through things. It just feels cheap. And on the topic of cheapness, I feel like the desire to have the concurrent subplots running in 2022 is less about having a diverse team helping Ben complete his missions or introducing new layers of intrigue to the Quantum Leap universe, and more about saving production costs by filming a good chunk of the show in 2022. Think about it. You don't have to find as many era-appropriate locations, vehicles, clothing, hairstyles, and everything else you'd have to do in a time travel series if you keep a good chunk of the show in the present. That saves money. And as an aside, being the nerd that I am, I actually created a spreadsheet tracking how much time in the episode was spent in 1985, and it was 27 minutes out of the 42-minute runtime, which includes credit and title sequences, etc. In the original series, very few episodes contain scenes taking place in the future. The vast majority were focused on Sam and the time period he was in. In some respects, it was probably more economical for the original series, as they didn't have to come up with a lot of future tech and locations. The new Quantum Leap is also messing with a bunch of established canon, which for me brings up traumatic memories of my experiences with Star Trek Discovery. For starters, there's no mention of the waiting room. In the original series, the person Sam leaps into swaps places with Sam in the future, where they're held in a location referred to as the waiting room. In the waiting room, they sound and look like Sam to everyone else. It was suggested that leapees had to be in the waiting room in the future in order for Sam to leap once he completed his mission. They would interrogate the leapee in the waiting room to help figure out where and when Sam was. Another sticky point is that Ben can see himself leaping, and Addison can see him leaping as well. Sam did not visually see the leap, nor did Al. In the final episode of the original series, Sam encounters another leaper, Stappa, who vanishes, and only Sam and the bartender remember he existed. Sam concludes that Stappa must have leaped, and when Al finally finds him, he asks if he turns all blue when he leaps and if there's a bright light. Al responds that when Sam leaps, their connection is severed and Al is returned to the imaging chamber. It's minor, but they must know nitpickers like me exist. Now, when it comes to complaining about a TV show, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience. But how would I have made this show better? First of all, don't show us the future or 2022 off the hop. In fact, have Ben wake up in a situation like Sam did. No memory, disoriented, freaked out by the wrong reflection. Make him and the audience confused and give us all a mystery to uncover together. Have him spend 10 to 15 minutes stumbling around trying to figure out why he can't remember who he is and not recognizing that the hologram from the future is an actual person from the future. Or think that the hologram is a ghost like Sam thought Al was in the first episode. My second suggestion would be to not make Addison the hologram. How can she be an impartial observer who will help Ben accomplish his mission if she's also his love interest? In the original Quantum Leap, we learn in Season 4 that Sam is actually married and doesn't remember it. Sam's wife Donna specifically prevents Al from telling Sam this, because in her words, Sam couldn't do what he has to do if he remembered them. How is Ben going to kiss the love interest of the person he leaps into, or have sex with them while Addison is watching? It just seems like a conflict of interest. Ian is a far more interesting character. Flamboyant, a bit of a hound dog like Al, he would have been a great hologram in contrast to Ben's choir boy persona. So that's everything I have to say about the pilot episode of the 2022 version of Quantum Leap, and this was my first TV show review ever. Were my criticisms too harsh? Did I praise it too much? Let me know what you thought of it and my review, and if you'd like me to continue doing this. Also, if you can share the video with people you think might be interested in it, please do. I'm honestly terrible at marketing, and all success in my life has been through word of mouth. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all in the future.